Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. I'm your host, Kolo, and I'm joined today with a very special guest, a friend of mine, a fellow warrior, martial artist, and entrepreneur, Guro Kristen Cabildo. So I'm super happy to have her on today. She is the founder of Chrysalis Kali Collective. And Chrysalis Kali Collective centers on Filipina and Filipinx exploration of Kali, Filipino martial arts, as a transformative decolonization practice, which Kristen will go into a little bit more herself as well. And Chrysalis Kali Collective offers online and in-person training, as well as opportunities to become part of a very strong and supportive community. So, Kristen, mahalo nui loa for coming on and joining us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, tell us a little bit more about your business, how you got started with it, and just what inspired it. And we'll just go into more of kind of where you're at and what you hope for the future in it.
Yeah, sure. So, Chrysalis Kali Collective wasn't a business to start with. I actually just started doing some workshops in my apartment with other women of Filipino ancestry. So I had met these girls at this workshop for Philippine herbalism. And this was maybe in, I think, 2017. And they were like, "Oh, you do Filipino martial arts?" And didn't have a community of other Filipino women, other women in general, to train with. And, they were really interested in connecting more with their heritage. And I also just wanted some, Filipino friends, some sisters. They were interested in the same, topics that I was interested in, like, being a brown woman in the United States, what is our experience of Filipino identity, being, children of immigrants living in the diaspora. So, issues that I didn't really have the ability to chat with my other martial art bro friends, the guys that I
Yeah.
trained with. And so it was just, it started initially just again as like I saw, they asked for it, and it was something that I wanted to share. And I didn't have any role models. I didn't have any Filipino women instructors, growing up in the arts. Didn't really, have a close community of like women, warriors or sisters, in the art that were interested in diving into these topics or connecting with Filipino heritage in the same meaningful way. A lot of the instructors, Filipino martial arts, are the older generation. They're men, they come from, different generations. So it was just really awesome to finally find a community that was interested in these topics. And then I had something that I wanted to share with them, and they wanted to reconnect with their body. So again, it didn't start as a business. Because I'm, my background is in social work, so I could work for free. Essentially, I that's what I was doing essentially, which was like, come over, we'll train, we'll talk about Filipino martial art history, we'll cook Filipino dishes, and then I was like, oh, this is something that I would hope could reach more people because there's not many women Filipino instructors, and then that's how it kind of developed into this online uh, model or business where I'm hoping to reach, more people who are looking for a similar community, and want to dive deep into their ancestry in a really meaningful way with this kind of special lens of like looking at it through a decolonization lens, a healing lens, healing historical trauma lens.
Sure. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the decolonization aspect of that, and what that means and how you go about doing that within the community and teaching others?
Sure. Yeah. So, decolonization, when I first learned about it, I was in my early 20s, and I learned it kind of through an academic lens. So the history of the Philippines, Spanish colonized the Philippines for 350 years, and then the Americans came in, had bases there, military bases, also kind of influenced the Philippines in a very Western sense. And so, much of our history has been, there's been a history of resistance against colonization because the Spanish came, Catholicism came and suppressed indigenous beliefs, suppressed, much of the culture, much similar to what happened to Native Americans here, in the United States. And so, growing up in the United States, my father's Filipino, I'm biracial, my mom is from European descent, but I didn't grow up with a sense of what my Filipino identity is or was very different than what my father, who grew up in the Philippines. So, he encouraged me to, speak English, learn Spanish, and actually it's more practical, living in the United States.
Yeah.
And so much of my generation, being from, parents that are immigrants, we question, what does it mean to be Filipino? What does it mean, to be Filipino American? Um, I associated with just the food, maybe speaking the language. There was a sense of, oh, I'm not Filipino enough, I'm not American enough. So, how do we reclaim these parts of our identity that feel empowering, but know that, we don't live in the Philippines?
Yeah.
So, decolonization is this journey, essentially. I know the word is used in other respects, like with regards to actually giving Indigenous people back their land. But there's also, we define the word in, how do we, the process of decolonization is a process of healing intergenerational trauma, healing the effects of colonization. That said that people, who were Filipino were less than, when the Spanish came, when the Americans came, they were less than, they were, backwards, that kind of thing. And so, how do we regain a sense of wholeness, of knowing that we're enough, that our lives matter, that our, who we are, and our identity as Filipino Americans, it's not going to look like the past generation, but we can find a sense of connection to our ancestry that's really empowering. That's not going to look like our parents or previous generations, but we can, um, you know, heal the effects of colonialism, heal the effects of historical trauma, intergenerational trauma. This is a huge, big thing that is, I think, affects everybody, right? The intergenerational trauma of,
Yes.
what's happened in the past, how that has affected people's nervous systems,
Hmm.
and um, engaging in Kali or engaging in Filipino martial arts as a way to reconnect with our bodies in a way that kind of invokes our ancestors, right? Which is why this group is so special, because I'm like, oh, if you have Filipino ancestry, like you have in our collective history this warrior heritage that really resisted colonization, that is continues to survive and to thrive despite all of the big historical events that have happened. And so our group is really trying to embody that through practicing the physical art, discussing these topics, again, different than, the previous generation of Filipino martial artists, and kind of unpacking the patriarchy also in martial arts. I mean, it's been dudes, right, for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yep. And they've
But
definitely,
I
a
do
lot
want
of
to
them
say,
done a splendid job too, as well as our teachers as well. But
cool.
yes, absolutely. It's also nice to see, they talk about this with representation in film, right? It's like, being able to see someone who looks like you on screen is super important for many people. And, when you can see that, you can imagine yourself in that situation or having that possibility that it can even happen. So I think it's very much so in that same way. Decolonization.
100%. And, I also, I've learned so much from all of my instructors, regardless if they're Filipino or not Filipino. And we both train under Guru Daniel Santo, and his
Mhm.
knowledge of and transmitting of history is so, so important.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so, there's nothing lost in what I've been through and what I've also gained through my own instructors. And there's something to be shared, just because there hasn't been many people who are identify as women or who
Yeah.
identify as, other identities, right? Gender identities that have been welcomed in the martial arts.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like is important, because learning to defend yourself is a human right. I think,
Yeah.
you should know that you should be able to protect yourself.
Yeah. No matter what
So
gender that you identify with, correct? And then it's important also being able to see women instructors, kind of like what I was also saying before. And I didn't realize how much of a difference that would make to some people, right? Like even just getting newer students come in and having them be more comfortable with a female instructor. And then again, like maybe that's just their in, and then they can learn to also be comfortable with a male instructor, or again, any, gender that may be there. And that's totally fine. It's not trying to take away from the kane from the men here, right? It's about building up the wahine, building up the female power in the spirit, and it's not taking away. Like there's a balance. Like even here in Hawaii, like we say, no wait, but they say, each of us has half and half. Like again, this is what I've been told here. So we have a kane side and we have a wahine side. So in each have to should be balanced out. within everyone we have that. So it's important to make sure that you have that. But my point is, again, like you're saying, is to be able to be ourselves and to have that ability to be able to teach that. Guru Dan talked about that this year, like when we were there for instructor camp, and he was super proud, like to hear that I even have my own school here. I was floored. He was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," and I was like, "Oh my god, like what?" But and it was just so cool to see you there, and just always very, very powerful to see so many fellow students that I've gotten to train with, and again, just other Wahine warriors out there. So, and again, thank you so much for coming on and being able to share that light here too. So, talk to us too as well. So, you offer online courses and in person. So you have been able to now make this a business, which again, it doesn't take away from anything. It's not making, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything that you shouldn't, like, oh, you're taking money. No, it's like this is something that people desire, and it's something that you can offer, and it's something that, yes, you should be compensated for because you're giving your time, your effort, your energy. And yes, you absolutely can do free events and all these other things as well, giving back to the community 100%. But yes, we do all have to make a living. So, but yeah, talk to us a little bit more about that and how you're running that and how you're able to make an income on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I do want to, just also like what you said, like that was a big thing for me to kind of overcome and challenge my own mindset around inherited beliefs about money and what
Hmm.
like making a lot of money would is or means. And so, I think that might be a lot of people's journeys, especially if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're from my personal experience, because I went to school for social work and was also like, I'm just gonna like save the world, and like I could work for free, and it's just about the mission. And I was like, oh, I actually have to take care of myself first too, and that I can run a business and it can be a mutually thriving situation where what I offer is affordable, and the people feel like they're taken care of, that I run an ethical business, right? And that a lot of the things I had to overcome was my own like beliefs about money, essentially. I think that's like a huge thing. So
So
like
how
that
did
continues to evolve. Yeah.
Sorry. So going into that though, how did you do that? And also like to add to that too, and it's not for everyone, right? It's kind of a general term, but we do find it a lot as women. We take that caretaking role. Sometimes whether we want to
100%.
or not, or realize it or not, like we're so supportive of other people, and then all of a sudden it comes to us, and it's just like, and some other women have been able to overcome that, or maybe that's just not what they feel inherently, and that's fine. But and that's great because then they can maybe not have those same issues, but I'm sure there's other ones. But my point is, it's just we tend as a whole to take that caretaker role, which is why I think sometimes it's hard to also think about what to charge, how to charge. Usually it's like, oh, if we're trying to help somebody else with their business, we're all for it, but all of a sudden it gets to us and it's just like, um, we're kind of putting our imposed demands that we have on ourselves onto others, right? So, that's definitely something that I've also had to work through. So, how did you personally work through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still something that I am, working through, because it's always like, am I charging enough, or am I charging too much? Feeling uncomfortable. Um, and you know, I do feel so. I'm gonna give a little shout out to the this group that I'm a part of. I'm a part of this group called New Money Social Club, and it's a bunch of purpose-driven people who are like involved in healing or holistic businesses, and like a lot of the dialogue is around like healing. Um, the narratives that we have about money, and to know that what we have to offer the world is special, right? And it's something that we can charge for, and it's a continuous process to feel like you're worthy enough, right, to be able to charge for the things, but then also, realizing, oh, I've done martial arts for 20 years, so it's, I think, like anything, martial arts, business, they're mirrors, right, to the things that you have to work on within yourself, and knowing and valuing what you have to
Yeah.
offer to the world. So it's a continuous journey that I'm happily on, just like martial arts. Um, and I think, it'll constantly be challenging me. And, but it's nice to have a community of people who are going through the same thing. So it's been really good.
Absolutely, and that's 100% why I'm doing this podcast as well, because there is other people out there that are like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know where to begin." That was me, and I had people in my life, neighbors and my cousin who runs her own business too, that were able to help me. They had been through it. They'd started their own business prior or, were still in the process and they knew that foundation. And those foundations, like even the nitty-gritty part, like I talk about this on the podcast with other guests as well. Like I get into it. I'm like, I know this sounds like boring details, but like how did you do it? Like did you do LLC? Did you do S corp or whatever the case may be? Those are the little details that matter. And especially taxes, all those things, it's hard enough to know that as just an individual in general, right? Because we're not really taught that in school, unless maybe in college you take the business courses and stuff, which by the way, that should totally be changed in general elementary school curriculums, like, or even middle school to high school. You should have a class on how to do your taxes. Like, I don't know why that's a thing or why it's not a thing yet. So, anyway, maybe it is in like private schools, but should be public school related too. But yes, sorry. Going back to what you're offered here. So, you're currently working through it and you're still figuring out, which again, and prices just like martial arts and everything can change based on what you're learning, what you've put into your own education. So don't forget about that too, guys out there. And then what is it that you are offering, Kristen? So is it training, the virtual that's happening, or is it also, because I know you do community activities talking about the decolonization and trying to get that healing and understanding with each other? And I've seen that you've done some talks too, and I do want to talk about that, but let's talk about your programs that you have to offer.
Yeah, so right now I have a monthly membership for the Filipinx community, and it's we have weekly, like maybe 3 times a month on Tuesdays where we meet online for 1 hour, and I alternate between doing a mini lesson on the history of Filipino martial arts or on, like, I recently just did one on the vagus nerve, which is about our central nervous system. Then I did one about the warrior spirit animals. And I did one about triangle concepts, right, in Filipino martial arts. So we talk about these different topics in Filipino martial arts, and then we connect it to our individual journeys regarding our identity, our decolonization journey, our healing journey. And then we always do a little bit of movement. So it's very much movement based. You're training the movements. We alternate sessions, so we do it like the other week is going to be just all movement, doing individual Kali footwork or techniques. And then I have a virtual library of over 100 um, ways that you can practice at home. Uh, Also, there's it's a growing library, so I have video for partner drills. I have some strength training drills too, because I'm a personal trainer, and martial art journey, you should also be strengthening your body. And then all of these sessions are recorded. So I have a little community now of people, of folks that meet with me weekly online from different parts of the country. And it's just I just started this membership. I did a launch last year. Actually, it was an 8-week course called Warrior Rising,
Mm,
which was like almost like my test group a little bit. Um,
yeah.
and it was great. It was very similar, but it was like twice a week, and it was intense. But now I've made it into like an ongoing monthly membership. So hoping to grow and to continue to get more people training and just excited about Filipino martial arts and feeling like they have a community, because a lot of times people just don't have Filipino martial arts, like there's no access to it, right?
Yeah,
So that's what I'm
absolutely.
hoping for people.
Or they don't understand, right? And there's so many different names too that we know it under. Like we know it as Kali, but other people will say, "Oh, Eskrima or Arnis or different things." And I try to explain
Right.
to people that yeah, that's with either within the system or it's just again Kali isn't even like an umbrella system. There's different factors. There's so many. There's Blintawak, like there's Inisanto Lakas Kali. There's so many different things that are under there. So yes, and I mean you can
Yeah.
again add anything because you're higher belt than me and higher experience than me, but about that. But yeah, I absolutely love Kali and it's so important. And out here in Hawaii too, there's a lot of different people. Like even Guru said that like people would come out here. So and I definitely want to take advantage of that. But yeah, everywhere else it's hard to find because it just people don't necessarily understand about. I didn't know. I didn't know until I had gone to Anderson's, in New York City, Anderson's Martial Arts Academy. I had mentioned that previously on this podcast. That's where I had learned, and I just grateful that I was able to learn the history, learn the art, and be able to go on from there. And then again, train under Guru Dan, who I learned even more from and had like a different understanding. And I actually wanted to mention that before too, because you were talking about it's important to connect with your history, right? With your culture, with your community. And Kali is a part of that for the Filipinos, Filipina, Filipinx. And it's also important, like Guru had mentioned that too, within each culture, within each background that you have, like you have, there's usually a weapon system. There's usually some sort of martial art that's there that you should definitely explore. And then exploring the others helps you connect to each other and to the world. And then you realize there's really not much different from each of us. There's enough of a difference to make it unique, to make it special, but to understand that it is all connected and that we are also all connected and able to build that within each other. And I think that's amazing. And just, worldwide support. So I totally understand, being Irish, Scottish, like I'm so many things. And I love to learn about each one. I'm not Filipina at all. I have many, although my friends have told me maybe inside somewhere I am, but so did the guy I bought like a ton of training swords from. He's like, "Are you sure you're not at all?" I'm like, "No." But anyway, no, I'm not at all, but I really enjoy being able to learn about it and the culture and being able to share it. I feel such honor again because I'm not Filipina at all. And I do let people know, this is the culture, this is where it comes from, and I try my best to be able to teach them. And it's so interesting too because I'm teaching people of descent sometimes, like of that culture. And it's, I'm always so respectful, and I try to make sure that there is that understanding and that respect, and I'm just super grateful to be able to do that. So and that's awesome that you were able to
Yeah.
start that 8 week process too. So well, it started as the 8 week process twice a week, and then again now that it's grown. So how have you been able to grow that? Was it like word of mouth, or since it's online, I was going to say it's a little hard word of mouth, but I guess not because we're all so connected now. But how were you able to grow your student base?
Yeah, I mean, it's still really small. I only have maybe under 20 online.
Mhm.
And then I do have um, monthly in-person sessions. So
Yeah.
whoever's local, we can come together for 2 hours monthly in person, which is, really great way to connect. But I have to admit, a lot of the people that join my program are because they know a friend who has trained with me before, or they've been referred to me. Um, I'm like still very new to Instagram. I'm trying to learn how to market better.
Yeah.
And a few people have found me via Instagram, but a lot of people, just know from word of mouth, who's people who've trained with me before or who know me or friends with a friend of mine. So,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool too, so they know, through the grapevine, which is cool.
And then with that too, though, so right, like I've had a lot of recommendations to others, and people just either find excuses not to train or whatever. I mean, and my students, thank you to all you students out there who are listening too. I love you all. I'm so grateful for you all. I'm so grateful for the recommendations that you give. But again, like anything else, you tell your friends a million times over and over and they don't listen to you until finally one day they do. But it sounds like their friends are listening and able to come to you. So, what was it that sparked them to be able to not only come to you, but stay? So, how were you able to maintain that retention with them? What is it? Did you offer trial class, or did you just offer, hey, this is what we do. If you like it, you can stay. And then it's just the quality of the product and service that you give.
Yeah, I do think because I'm like such a niche. So, these are people who maybe are movement people and who've tried martial arts, or maybe like were really just like turned off by going to a gym. And then they saw me and I look like them essentially. And they're like, oh, this art is now accessible. And I don't feel like uncomfortable because I'm in like a gym environment and somebody's yelling orders at me to do these moves. I'm like with a bunch of sweaty people I don't know. They feel more comfortable because they're with like community. So it's really like, and it's the same thing like all other physical, sports. It's like if you're not ready, you're not ready. You're not going to come to class,
Right.
until
Right.
you personally decide that you're ready. So it can do. That's why I'm kind of like, I don't. I'm not really. I give people, come for first time free in person. Um, and see if it's for you. I offer that like most, gyms. Um, and then people will see, I think it's a vibe. I think, like, I'm sure too, like, people are attracted to communities that they feel at home with.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I'm not for everybody, but the people who are looking for me are looking for the specific,
Right.
like, decolonization lens, and looking
Mhm.
for a way to get in touch with their bodies that feels super empowering. That's not just like lifting weights or like doing, just a boxing class, right? Which
Yeah.
is empowering in of itself, but to have a connection to the ancestry
Right.
is like another level of meaning. So
It's a school, it's a course. Like that was always the difference of how we trained too, right? It wasn't just the gym, it was the university. It was like that continued education and understanding of self and just how we can be the better version of it, I guess, or not the better version. I don't want to say better, but the best version of it because we're always learning and just that's what we do. And
100%, yeah.
there's something I was gonna say to that. Yes. Oh, sorry. Going with the niche idea. So I've had kind of like trouble with that because I always hate like narrowing down too much because I never want to exclude anybody or pigeonhole myself for that matter. Or maybe pigeonhole isn't the right word, but or maybe you do. Maybe you do have to make it like kind of pigeonhole to start and then you can broaden that up, which is exactly what you did with your programs too. Sorry, adjusting the mic again. Just keeps creeping down. I'm like, I don't know what's happening with this microphone over here. So yeah, going back to that. So with the niche thing, people told me, "Oh, you should do the women's self-defense." And I'm just like, "Why are you just putting me into one category?" But I think really it's not necessarily about that. I think it's exactly what we're talking about. I think it's about giving people someone that looks like them, you know, to be in front of them, to help them understand, But the problem sometimes is too, it's like you'll get the ones that feel that way, but then sometimes you'll get people that like don't trust it because you're also that and they feel victimized, right? So and they don't see that you're standing up to maybe those who oppressed them or had abused them. So it's always nice to also have a guy sometimes in there with you or like, to show them like, no, this can work. Or not necessarily a guy, but anybody, any bigger opponent, whether whatever gender they may be. But yes, sometimes it ends up usually being like a bigger dude. Sorry guys. This is the stories that I'm getting, right? So um, yeah, there was a point to all that.
Mm.
I don't remember what it was though.
Well, well, you're talking about niching, and
Right.
here's the
Thank you.
thing that I've struggled with that too, because I also was like, well, I like teaching everybody about Filipino martial arts, and but what my personal experience was growing up 15 years, right, of in a male dominated sport, and I had nobody that looked like me, I realized that having a community is special, for those people who, again, need a way to find like a bridge to get into the art. And I tell people who train with Chrysalis Kali, a lot of the folks that train with me train at Unlimited Martial Arts as well. So I always tell
Yeah.
people this is not a closed community. We're here to
Yeah.
feed this part of ourselves that hasn't been
Mhm.
fed. There has been no spaces of just for Filipinx folks to do this type of work. So that's incredibly special. But the reason we're doing this work is so we can be better humans out in the world. And I tell my students all the time, you're never going to just fight women of our size.
Right.
If you want to be a well-rounded martial artist, you have to engage in training with people of different sizes and different strengths and whatever. And so a lot of my Chrysalis Kali members train at Unlimited Martial Arts, and that feeds me as well because I get to be an instructor at Unlimited Martial Arts where I train everybody. And I
Yeah.
realized that, oh, it doesn't have to be like I talk about this kind of stuff in Unlimited Martial Art classes too. And
Mhm.
some people are definitely receptive. And I'm like, oh, it's a vibe, really, that like
Yeah.
all people who are interested in training martial arts with this spirit of like, wanting to feel really excited about the history of Filipino martial arts, but also to like look at martial arts from a holistic perspective, mind, body, and spirit. Like that's what I teach. And so, regardless
Yeah.
of where you're from, if you vibe with that, that's cool. And I teach privates, and we can train together. So
Yeah.
I'm not limited to this group, but it's still an
You're
important
unlimited.
space that I'm. Exactly, exactly. That community, and the people that I'm instructors with at that school have really
Mhm.
supported me in Chrysalis Kali. So I really appreciate Sifu Phil and all my co-instructors there who like support me. I mean, I host Chrysalis Kali there, which is like a really
Yeah.
amazing thing. So um,
No, I mean that's
yeah,
amazing.
so
Like to have somebody that's able to do that and work with you and support you like that is amazing. It's not we've talked about this so much, and being in New York, like there's always dog eat dog, right? And from me being out here in Hawaii, I understood that, but then you also learn so much that there's plenty of people and plenty of things to go around. Yes, you should always be have that competitive edge, but at the same time, like you can also help each other, like this could be a team effort. And we understand that with Jeet Kune Do as well, which is what you and I are both like we've studied under and that we teach, and that Kali is a big part of that too, is that absorb what's useful and disregard what is not. But that always means in different moments, and different moments are going to require different things. So again, going back to be a well-rounded martial artist. And that's awesome that Unlimited Martial Arts in Brooklyn they are, right? Awesome. How many
mhm, yeah.
classes do you teach out of there?
I teach 4 classes during the week.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, so I also teach Jeet Kune Do, Filipino martial arts at Unlimited Martial Arts in Williamsburg or Brooklyn in New York. And there's a bunch of different arts that we teach there. So you'll find Muay Thai, kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you'll find Jeet Kune Do, capoeira. So we have a variety of arts there. And one of the questions I saw, on your handout that you gave me for this was, like, would I work for anyone else, right? Like, I'm an entrepreneur, I work for
Yeah.
myself, I'm an independent contractor,
Yep.
and I basically work for myself, but I do work for limited martial arts. Like, I
Hmm.
am an instructor there, and I feel like, being a part of a team and having the right type of leadership really makes working for somebody really enjoyable, So I feel really seen there and I feel really heard. And, we always have team meetings, and, I will lead with my other black belt, Guru Hannah, will lead the tests, So I mean, we're given a lot of responsibility and a lot of trust. And I do feel like, when you're working for the right people and you have the right leadership, working in a team is so rewarding. So I like
Yeah.
doing both. I like working for myself, and if you're working for the right team, then
Yeah.
you can create a lot of magic and a great community.
Yeah, and build that community,
Just want to
which they have. Yeah, no, of course, absolutely, like always, for sure. And that's because that's a part of who we are and how we've grown. Sifu Phil too. I used to train with him as well. We did well, I did used to train with him in classes and also private lessons. So, thanks for helping me with my kick, Sifu Phil. And many other things too, knife training. So, we spent a lot of time with him just working on a lot of stuff. So always appreciative of that. And just everyone helped me along the journey. And even if people don't talk as much or whatever, like I'm grateful, just always know that. So but yeah, no, I'm super glad that that's what you've been able to do too. And it's just having that community is such a huge support. So and not everybody has that, and I understand that not everybody has that same support either. And maybe they feel like they're a little bit more alone, but you're not. Again, just listening to this podcast, guys, like I don't necessarily have that myself, but I also don't not have it. I do have a community. It might not be always in the same field of that same support, but again, Kristen's here supporting me and herself today on the podcast, and I'm super grateful, and I'm so grateful that we were able to catch up to like at Guru Dance. So I haven't seen you guys for a while, but it was always amazing. And you're are married yet, or still fiance Tim?
we're finally married.
Oh,
So
Mary,
3 years married.
congratulations!
Four,
Awesome. Okay.
14 years together. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so but it's awesome too, she's got that support as well from her husband, and he's also a very skilled martial artist, and he's been in the game for a long time too, and he was also a help to me when we were all training together. So, relationship goals there one day. I mean, one day maybe I'll have my own. But it would be awesome, it's because then you could always bounce ideas off of each other and whatnot, and just within your business that you love and love to do. So I think that's the other important part too about you working with UMA too, is that it's within the same thing, right? It's not a totally different work that you're doing. Like I've had to get other jobs here sometimes just to kind of have that income for when it's not because being a personal trainer, being like a school, it's very up and down, right? With finances, and you got bills to pay, whether it's for the school or for the, everything that you're going, and it's, it doesn't always cover it. And it's
Yeah.
not a hit to the,
Yeah.
it's a little hit to the ego, but it shouldn't be a hit to the ego to have to get that extra job and just for a little while. I think for me personally, I don't want to get stuck in that fast money, waitressing or whatever. I always keep it in the forefront of my mind, like, I'm just doing this for a little bit for when I need to. Not that I'm trying to screw over the company that I'm working for either. I'm very transparent about it as much as possible without being like, gonna leave you guys, just being like, hey, I'm here looking here for part time. I need this to make money. I run my own business, so on and so forth. And it's kind of come to that time right now again where I have to do that, and that's okay. Just know out there, guys, like if you have to do that, you have to do that, and you're gonna do what it takes to make your business work. And it's also okay to adapt. It's also okay to restructure your goals, but don't do it out of fear or out of just, oh, I've tried and failed and failed. No, maybe it's just some different things need to be tried, or you just got to keep going. Sometimes it's about the reps, right? How many times are you going to fail doing these reps over and over again, but then you start to succeed and see these different things that work, right? Just like sparring, what works, what doesn't work, what technique can work in this situation. And it just takes time. Right? I mean, Kristen, you can kind of,
Yeah.
add to that too if you have
Oh,
anything.
100%. 100%. I feel like it's the long game essentially, right? And that especially in, personal training and, the businesses that we're in, like it's seasonal sometimes. Like I have a lot of clients away right now for the summer. Like I feel you. I totally feel you. So like being creative with, your income, but being smart, knowing that you might need to like, strap down for a little bit. Like under looking at the longer picture and essentially like what I'm feeling also, maybe also now that I'm older too, that um like trusting, like you said, like when you're sparring, you're learning, right? So you're going to get knocked down, but you still
Yep.
always get up and you still are continuing to train, right? And that's the
Yeah.
same thing with our training. Like you and I are going to be lifelong martial artists, and you might break an arm or you might get sick or life happens. But what is the mission, right? And like I really
Right.
um, feel like Chrysalis Kali will be my kind of like lifelong. It might change and adapt, but I'm here for the long game. And so it might not be the most biggest thing right now. Maybe it'll have its time. Maybe it'll shift and adapt, but really like getting clear about the why. That's
Yeah.
what's now fueling me, right? When I was in my 20s and 30s, it was like, like, what's my purpose and everything? I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm here. I have my purpose, and it'll grow with me, it'll evolve, and sometimes it won't make as much money, and that's okay because it's still fueling me from a deeper sense. I'm sure how you're teaching, maybe your school, this podcast, like you're being fueled by something deeper, right? And
Yeah.
that's what's going to sustain us through harder times, financial times, right?
Yeah.
A pandemic, that kind of thing. We adapt, right?
Yeah. And you're right. It's definitely remembering the why, because even the things that you love doing, you won't always feel like doing, or you forget why you enjoy doing it so much. And I think that just goes right back to what you were saying before about, taking care of your body. And we learn that through martial arts too. But it's so easy to get out of the habit. And like, I'm just so proud of myself because recently I've been basically running every morning, nearly 4 miles, like not straight. I'll take a coffee break and sit in a tree or whatever, but I'll do it. And I've been doing it every morning, and I've been getting up early, which I did not do before. I would sleep, I would be mad at myself, and then the rest of the day would be thrown off. But now I'm having better days because of it. And, it was kind of a mix of, I was watching dogs. So that's something that I do. I watch, animals too, which I'm more happy when I can also do that versus like in a restaurant or something. But, I'm happy when I get to do that. And then I was running like every other day or something with this dog, high energy. So it was perfect because I was like, good, I need you as my trainer dog. Like, it was an Australian Shepherd. So she kind of set me up with just my running. I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to vacation on the mainland again, back up to Lake George in New Jersey. And I just kind of kept that going. Like, I would love to go to the beach down the road, which is about a mile. So, like 1.2. So I was like, all right, let me just get there. I'll throw my suit on. So I'll kind of have a break in between, swim, still be active, and then jog or run and walk back. And I just kind of kept doing it. And it was awesome. And I actually felt really, really good. And, and I know people are listening to it like, oh, good for you sometimes. You know what I mean? And it's just like, how do I get into that? And that's just, yeah, again, it's just getting out there and doing it. But it really is that why. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, now in the morning, I'm like, I should be seeing Hawaii every day. Like, why am I not going to the beach every single day? And I wasn't. Like, people that it happens to people. They get stuck in not going, and like they'll be months without going to the beach. I'm 20 minutes walk from the beach. Like there's no reason that I shouldn't be going. So now I've found that purpose, and I have been getting up, and I've been like, all right, I gotta make sure to get there and go. So, again, just going back to that why that Kristen was talking about is super important, and figuring out how to really hone into that. Because sometimes, like I said, why, but you got to you got to take a deeper look into it. And, I think just once you start doing that, all of the rest of your life will kind of come together too. But it's not just adding, right? Sometimes it is also taking away what's not useful. Obviously, we talked about that. But, for me, okay, not watching as much TV because I'll get caught in that. And then also for me, again, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot about me right now, but this is what's happening in my life and what's been very useful for me, both as an entrepreneur and just as me, just for me, myself, and my confidence. And, outdoor living was a big thing. So I realized in Lake George, I was successful because we were outdoors all the time. There was a tent outside and whatnot. So I was able to get that here. I set up a little outdoor space where I'm not frying. So, I was able to do that. And that's been super helpful to me. So, how do you find that you can stick with there's two questions kind of to this. Like, how do you make sure that you don't get complacent with your whys, or make sure that you kind of stay connected with your why? And also, how do you look at your long game? Like, how do you plan for that? Sometimes I get personally very overwhelmed with a lot of details, although I think if you're planning for the long game, you kind of put it in maybe a general scope and then break it down with details. But if you can go into that, I would really be grateful myself, and I'm sure my listeners would too.
Yeah, well, I have to admit, I think, the why can change over time. And I'll only speak from my experience because, like, for example, why I started martial arts when I was 18 is very different than why I do it now. So I feel
Mm.
like when you show up and you're consistent, even if you don't know why anymore, right? But there's something in you that's still calling to come to
Yeah.
practice, to come train, right? Like, I feel like that's the same thing for a business. And here's the thing too, is that I think sometimes what happens with people, just like what happens with people in when they start working out, like they might start with running and then they're like, I don't actually like this, but they're why it's like, well, I weight training works well for me. So you might start a business and it might not be the right fit for you, you know? And so you have to like try things to figure out what works for you, and the why almost develops, I feel like, over time. And then like I feel like it's like sitting with what's happening and allowing all your stuff to come up around
Mm.
the frustration if it's not working for you or not making money, or like even me, I was like, even like last year I was like, do I really want to stay this like niche? Like, I want Chrysalis Kali to be for everybody. And then I was like really struggling. I was like, I have to change my name or whatever, And then I was like, oh no, wait a second. I have to go back to why I started this and what's really meaningful, and know that I can get fed in different ways from different things. Um, so I do a lot of journaling, to be honest with
Mm.
you. So I do a lot of like, um, when things come up, I'll just journal and journal, journal. And that's like a way to work through stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and I just think there's like a resilience that comes through time when you feel all your feelings. So if you're able to feel the frustration of what's happening right now and whatever's happening, and then you're able to feel the joy of whatever's happening in your business, just like anything else, then you're able to withstand the ups and downs of what's happening, and you can stay the course. And the only reason I think I'm able to do that is because I've stayed the course in martial arts for a bigger
Yeah.
purpose that, I feel like is, still being revealed to me. I'm like, why have I trained for this long? And I'm like, oh, it's because I meant to do Chrysalis Kali. Like, I meant to, spread martial arts in this particular way, and maybe it'll change. But that's what feels real and alive for me now. And I'm open to it shifting, So like remaining open, but also doing the work around asking ourselves questions, doing the deeper work. Um, and yeah, I guess like just like rolling with the punches and being able to adapt and all those things, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. Yes. And like last question, just kind of in regards to that, I'm sure, I mean, unless you're Superwoman, which you might be, uh, you don't always feel like doing those things, right? So it's not 24/7, and much of the fact, especially you live in New York City, so it's always go, 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 go. So how do you make sure that you do come to classes or to training for either for yourself or for when you're teaching? How do you make sure that you come how you go period, right? And then how do you make sure that you maintain a good attitude during that time?
Like, are you saying like how do I take care of myself as
How do you make
I
sure you show up,
multitask all the
basically?
things? Show up in training or just show up in life?
Maybe both.
Well, here's the thing is like I think that I have shifted what that means to me. So I used to show up for training regardless if I had my period, right? Which is why we canceled last time. Like, or
Yeah,
if I was feeling sick, I would just like show up all the time because I was like, I need to prove that I belong here. Like, if I don't show up, then I'm going to forget everything. Or like, there was
right.
this like, if I'm not consistent, it's like I'm I'm going to unravel or something like it or whatever. And
Yeah,
now I'm like, I need to show up for me now. But now me now is an amalgamation of a lot of different things. So like I'm older, I've prioritized martial arts for the first 20 years of my life. Now I want to prioritize, building this business, but starting a family. Like I show up for myself
yeah,
and that might not look like showing up for training 3 days a week now, but I do show up to make sure I move my body and I care for my body in what feels right for me in this period of my life. And
right.
right now, I weight train twice a week. I maybe do martial arts for myself once a week, but I do
Mhm.
so much teaching right now that I'm okay with it because
Yeah,
I'm working my brain in a different way. So I understand that showing up will be redefined depending upon the chapter of my life that I'm in. And if I'm okay with that, then that's what matters, not to whoever's looking at me, right? A lot of my life now is now less about what other people think about me and what do I think about myself.
yeah,
And am I doing right by me? And that might not look like I'm doing well for other people. They might be like, why did you do that? And I'm like, well, you haven't been in my body. You don't know my life experience. And right now I'm only accountable to me, my close family and friends, and to like what I want my future to be. And that feels so much more in alignment than how I showed up in life maybe like 10 years ago. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even those people,
totally.
like, I understand what you're saying too, in a sense of like, I feel like I'm gonna unravel if I don't show up because it's like for me, sometimes it's still that all or nothing. Unfortunately, like right now, I'm like, I'm making sure I get up and go every morning because the moment I stop, it will unravel. Like in a sense of it will become inconsistent. And then I'll make excuses why it's to not go rather than, hey, get up. If you can't run today, then walk. At least walk, at least just get there, get out. And that's something that's been a challenge for me. Although not this time, like I said, it's been easier because I'm like, okay, just go, just make sure you have time. And that's been a little like hit or miss, but I have been doing well. So it's just, like I said, I definitely feel that. And certain times you do have to still show up in that way. Like it's exactly what you're saying, but for me right now, that's what that is. And it's definitely
100%.
yeah. So
Yeah. I think it's just different for everybody depending on what chapter of their life they're in.
yeah, and
So you might
you're
need
able
to
to
have more discipline. Yeah.
yeah, I think you're able to stay that way because it's like, you don't let just like even if you miss a couple of days, it's not like you're going to be out the rest of like the month or whatever. You're able to be like, okay, I got to get myself back to this. This is my schedule and, whatnot. But then we were also talking about an important thing that I think we wanted to discuss as women as well who get, their period, which here they call it the muggy. So, it's also okay to take those days like, oh man, like just personally, last week, before it like came for me, I was screwing up. I was screwing up. Like I helped my friend with polo with horses, and I just kept like there was things that like important things that I was forgetting that I should not have been forgetting. And I usually I don't. I mean, I still ask a lot of questions because I'm still a little unsure of either myself or my knowledge, even though she's a very good instructor. And, it's just still learning. I've been there since I think November helping out, but I still am just like, I don't know, like I'm not here every day, like, but I am here every week. And, I'm grateful. And I just always want to do such a good job that I think that's also a lot of pressure. But the point was just like, I was like, "What the hell is happening? Why am I forgetting these things? Like, I'm gonna get fired from this like dream like work share thing we have going on." And I'm like, "I'm fucked. I'm fucked. That's it. That's what's." And then the next week I got my periods. I was like, "All right, at least there's a reason." But damn, like so it's definitely being prepared for that kind of stuff and also allowing yourself that time and that care to be able to feel that you wanted to discuss that too because again we did reschedule from last week and that's totally okay, otherwise our energy would be totally just you know down, right?
Totally different. Yeah. And, that's still something I grapple with too, because again, training in the martial arts for so long, I was like, I never would take off, even if I had my period or cramps or whatever.
Yeah,
And it's only recently really, and again, going through my own kind of journey with decolonization and also kind of like getting in touch with my body in a different way, because I think as athletes sometimes we override our bodies, and then also we're like meant to perform the same no matter what our bodies are doing, right? And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, if I'm working for myself, I should be able to also give myself a break if
yeah,
I'm like ovulating or like I'm going through my period or like my body is not feeling the best. And there's sometimes a fear of like, if I don't go to this client, right, I'm not going to make money. So I pushed myself also, being
yeah,
an entrepreneur, being like, I'm not going to make money if I don't, show up for work or whatever. And then now I'm a little kinder to myself, but it's still, I was like hesitant to reschedule you, but I was like, you understand. Um,
yeah,
but that maybe we can be kinder to ourselves, and maybe, and I'm still new to this also, of like, what would my calendar look like if I scheduled around knowing, maybe 3 days before I get my period, that like I don't have such a like intense schedule of clients, like maybe I can give
yeah,
myself a break if I can manage my own schedule. So it's like, oh, what are the narratives that I need to dissect about that I need to replace with, oh, caring for my body can actually be a priority. Listening to my body can actually be a priority. And I will actually show up better for people. I'll have better interactions. This interview is going a lot better than if I was like on the floor, like, being all crampy. So yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, like that's an empowering thing as a business owner, to be like, hey, not taking any meetings today or tomorrow. And no, then the world's not going to end, right?
right,
Like everything is going to be okay. So like,
yeah. So that's yeah, it is important to note that for sure. And we definitely, I know here like in Hawaii too, at least what friends have told me as well, is they would take that time, they would take that time to kind of just let their bodies like purge out whatever is needed to be like healed and refreshed, I guess. And it is important on the other hand too as well, like there are people and jobs where you would lose your job, right? Like for that, and that is the benefit of being an entrepreneur, is you kind
yeah,
of can plan and accordingly, right, to so that you don't necessarily lose money but you understand your body, your mind, and like where you're going to be most effective. And that is a key thing in general anyway, like no matter who you are, regardless of your period or whatever it may be that's causing your mind and body
yeah,
to not work in harmony, then figuring out like, okay, I need to make this quality of time, not quantity, right? There needs to be a high like output in that time frame that you have scheduled for that. And I think, it's interesting though, because then going into politics about that, right? Like that's what some people are worried about with female leaders, or which I don't know why that would still be a worry too. Like we do and can operate despite like our conversation right now. It's just like,
right.
you know, I
Totally.
wouldn't try like fucking with us that day. I'm not saying like, but but it's still going to be business. There is that conduction too. And yes, it'd be nice, but again, in a political thing, you're not working for yourself, you're working for the people, and that's understood. So that's not really so much as a problem as people like to make it out to be, if even they still make that a problem. But we're kind of past that, I guess, in society, but maybe not. um
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I know we kind of talked
yeah.
about a lot of stuff here, Kristen. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh no, I just think that, like just what you're doing, with this podcast is we're opening these things up for discussion, right? And
Yeah.
to possibly lead by example and to
Yes.
know that not every business is going to be run the same way. And we're moving into, I feel like, a space and opportunity where we can do things differently that supports mutual thriving for everybody, our bodies, our clients' bodies, right? Our health. Um, and that, and the thing that I'm learning too very much is that it's okay to make mistakes because we're human. And like, even in a business, right? Even just like, right, when you're sparring, right, you're going to get hit. Like, nothing is like, like you can always, you're always learning, right? Mistakes are
Yeah.
like to learn. Um, and it's a big experiment, essentially what we're
Yeah.
doing. Right? Um, and yeah.
I think the thing with mistakes too, I think the hardest part about them is when they happen over and over again, because then it's just like, why am I not learning this lesson fast enough? Or why have I not learned this lesson already because I have experienced it? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we say all the time, well, we learn from our mistakes. It's just like, well, I haven't yet, apparently, because I keep doing it. But at the same time, it's also what we talked about earlier. It's like, and again, going back to everybody says it, but like the Michael Jordan taking like 1,000 shots, it's just like you're not always going to make them. It's going to be the ones that you start to make that you start to learn and understand. But, not 100% of those shots are going to be made. So you just keep putting in the reps, you keep understanding. And yeah. And again, like in jujitsu too, you know how many times you get submitted as a white belt? I'm still a white belt. I'm still super senior white belt in jujitsu. But that's again because I don't have those amount of reps in there, consistency and showing up like that again for myself or for that particular art. But I will when I can, and that's just part of my own journey that I'm contending with. And then there was something else I was going to say off of that too. That's okay. So Kristen, is there anything like what would you offer as advice for anybody out there that's wanting to become an entrepreneur, or maybe that's an entrepreneur already and has just wants to contact you? Oh, what I was going to say too is just sorry, going back now, I remember what I wanted to say. So we're entering, I think, into an era, and we've already kind of been in it, of collaboration. So that's what you're saying, not every entrepreneur is going to be the same, but now we're learning to kind of like where we can support each other. And that's 100% it. Like, I feel that too. And other entrepreneurs I've spoken to, it's that understanding of like, hey, like we may be doing the same thing, but we're not always in competition. Like, you're in New York City, you offer an online program. Like, even if that's something I was offering, like that could be like, hey, we can create like a code or something. And then anybody that I refer that goes to you for, something that I'm not offering, right, is the same thing. But it's not the same thing, but you know what I mean, in a sense of we can always help each other. And I think that's a super, super powerful thing, because the more that we can help each other as well, build each other up, the better that we can help our communities, and perhaps like communities around the world, which I think is very important. So, going off of that as well, what is it that you would offer as advice, if you have any from your own experiences, for any aspiring entrepreneurs or anybody that is current entrepreneur that's looking for maybe a little pick me up from this podcast right now?
Um, yeah, I think, what I said before about finding a community of other entrepreneurs, or having conversations like, with you or other people who are going through a similar starting a business, or just because like there's so much to learn from people who've already been there, done that, or who have the pieces of the puzzle that you might not. And so to not do it, to go at it alone, like you said, like collaboration and learning from others is just so important. And I think again, the long game is, well, I guess again, it depends, right? Like finding some, you might try a bunch of different things, and like I didn't settle on Chrysalis Kali until maybe like 3 years ago. I was like, oh, it's not going to be a business, or like I'm just going to like be private, doing private clients for the rest of my life, making money that way, and I'll just do this thing for free, right? And so being open to finding ways to make your dream work, and that you might go through many iterations of it throughout your entire lifetime. And that it might not ever be this one thing that's stagnant, and you don't want it to be, because you're constantly growing and evolving. So your business is going to grow and evolve, with you, just like your martial art training practice is going to grow and evolve. And to be open to that, to not just like letting it be one thing, to letting it grow as you grow.
Awesome. And then just briefly, to before we get into kind of where people can find you, even though we touched upon that, You just said that it took you that long to, or not that long, but you know, you only decided on that name. So what inspired the name and what does it mean?
Yeah, so a chrysalis, right, is a protective outer layer when a caterpillar is in a cocoon. It's called a chrysalis, and that caterpillar is basically um, totally transforming itself. Like it's mushing itself and making itself into something else. And Kali is a practice where you're learning self-protection. So you're protecting your body, you're protecting your spirit, you're protecting your life force. So um, Kali, also in the way we train it in Chrysalis Kali, is a chrysalis. So it's a transformative practice, just like life is, right? It's a constant chrysalis. So I'm not like a big fan of the butterfly. I'm actually more a fan of this chrysalis, right? That's the cool thing because we're constantly in a chrysalis of transformation. We're never, you know, being just a butterfly. You're going into your chrysalis again. You're changing all the time, and that's what the message or the symbol means.
Yeah. And even with that though, still
Thanks for
you
asking.
are, yeah, of course. No, I did see it on the website. I just, I felt it was better coming from you. But yes, and then where can, I was gonna say in addition to that, it's like, yes, we are in that, but there is also that emergence of the beauty of that work within it. But yeah, and then coming back into maybe a
Totally.
different form of chrysalis, right? Like maybe the houses that you create once you've emerged, and again, just always adapting. And I think that chrysalis is always adapting too with the form that you've taken. Um, just my own little
Mm-hmm.
take on that
Yeah.
for you. But where
Nice.
can
Yeah.
folks find you? So we talked about Unlimited Martial Arts in where in Brooklyn? In
It's
Williamsburg?
in Williamsburg,
Awesome. So they
Brooklyn.
can
Yep.
find you there.
So umabrooklyn.com. That's the Unlimited Martial Arts website. And then it's chrysaliskali.com, where you'll see more about the group for Filipinx folks to train Kali as a decolonization practice. So that's where you can find me. Yay.
Awesome. And then on Instagram too, you have a handle. Is it just Chrysalis Kali?
Yes.
Awesome. Which I'm gonna link everything in here
Yep.
anyway, guys. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. At Chrysalis Kali or at my name at Chris Cabildo is my personal one, but they both, overlap. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm super thankful to have you on this podcast. I was very, very excited to be able to talk to you and just have this like very real conversation about everything that's going on in our lives and what we're doing. And again, just supporting each other and just know I'm there to support you whenever you need. And also just that this community, you are a part of this community now, warrior women in the world of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, you've been a part of it, but specifically this podcast. And, give it a listen for anybody else that you want to connect with. And anybody who's listening who's been on the podcast or not, definitely feel free to contact Kristen about anything that we've talked about today. And I'm super excited to see the long game. And I actually would love to have you back on to talk. I think I'm going to label that one the long game because I think there's so much that we can talk about within that and how to do that. And man, I really hope that I can get you out here to Hawaii and give a seminar because there's so many Filipino and Filipinx out here. And I think it would be really, really amazing. So you guys are welcome to come out. And I hope that, we can make that happen because I have a good few Filipino friends and also students. So I think that would be a really, really amazing thing for both their themselves and even the kids too, who are growing up with that heritage as well.
Super. Well, Cole, thank you so much. And it's been really inspiring to see also how much you've grown and that you've created this community and you're living the dream in Hawaii. But I mean, again, it's so amazing to see all of I call you guys my martial art brothers and sisters from way back in the day, and everybody's finding their path, and you're uplifting women in the art, and that you're teaching martial arts, Jukundo, Filipino martial arts, and I think all the people who are training and teaching, Filipino martial arts, like they carry, a lot of the warrior spirit, and you make my ancestors happy too because you're spreading the art and the knowledge to people who might not be able to, access it. So, really proud that you're doing this, and was really honored to participate. So, so thank you, and yeah, maybe Tim and I will come and visit you in Hawaii.
Got a spare room depending on time of year, but yeah, no, definitely come out. I mean, people say that shit, but I'm serious. Come on out. I need some training partners too. So that's the only thing. When you come out though,
Cool,
you guys got to
cool.
train with me. So
Got it.
Uh,
Got it. Deal. Deal.
Perfect. Awesome. And thank you so much to you listeners out there for tuning into another episode of the Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. Stay tuned. I know it's been a little bit of a crazy schedule and I've not kept up with my Mondays like I want to, but I'm just out there talking to people and trying to find those entrepreneurs to get on this podcast so that you guys can find them. So just keep up, put your notifications on as well, because whenever there's a new episode, it's going to show up and then you're going to be able to listen to it and tune back in with us. And again, mahalo nui loa to Kristen Cabildo, Guro Kristen Cabildo for coming on, and to everyone else who's also been on this podcast, and for you listeners out there. Mahalo, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.
Thank you.